Hello dear students, welcome again. In today's lecture, we are going to see gene action in breeding population. So already you all are familiar with the word gene. Gene is nothing but it is the unit of inheritance. So it is the character or it is the trait that is going to pass, or it is the hereditary material that is going to pass from one generation to the next generation or in offspring. So gene action is nothing but it is the behavior or the mode of expression of gene in a genetic population. So gene action is nothing but when that gene or that hereditary material, when it is passed on to the next generation, how that material or how that things are going to behave in a offspring or in a population, that is called as a gene action. So in another way, gene action refers to the way in which certain genes exert their effect on the body. So it may be in dominant form, recessive, or sometimes they could be sex linked or may be involved in the chromosomal aberration. So a combination of such a gene action result in the observable phenotype of an organism. So if you remember our previous lecture where we have discussed about the genetic variances, in that we have studied there are three components of variation, that is phenotypic variation, genotypic variation and environmental variation. So this phenotypic variance or phenotypic variation is the occur due to the genotypic component and environmental component. So this genotypic value or the genotypic variance is nothing but it is the pooled effect of all the genes which is inherited from parent to its offspring. So a genotype is a pooled. So it is not only result from one parent to its offspring. So it is a combination of the genes which is inherited from both parent into the organism. So a genotype is created afresh in each generation. Got it? So genotypic value or the genetic variance, that is result totally due to the genetic inheritance of character. So it is nothing but it is the average effect of all the genes which is inherited from both parents into the its progeny and having the average genotypic values that will determine the average genotypic value of your progenies. So why this phenotype of progeny is sometimes different than the both parent? So there are certain reasons. So why we get a variation among genes? So suppose you are having two parents, that is P1, if you are cross with P2 which is having a genotypic value capital A and small a, okay. So when you cross these two parents, the resulting F1 will have a heterozygote form, that is the capital A, small a. So this F1 progeny is resulted from average values or average effect of all the gene that is passed from these both parents, okay. So why we get a variation in this genotype, why you get this F1 is different than both of its parent? So there are two reasons, okay. There are two reasons, that is either due to difference between the two homozygotes. Why you will get a different phenotypic value or genotypic value? So either first reason is you difference in the value of the variation or whatever variation carried by homozygous dominant and recessive homozygous recessive homozygous, whatever differences exist between that character, due to this difference you will get variation in this F1. And another thing, difference between the heterozygous individual and mid parent value, and therefore you will get a difference in these two heterozygous individual or F1 progeny. So why we get such a differences again? So that is depend on the which type of gene action is involved. So effect of allelic substitution of the A locus, capital A locus. So when these genes are going to shift from this recessive towards the dominant form, it will result in the variation. Or okay. So why we require a knowledge of such type of gene action? So it will help the breeder in the selection of parents for the use in the hybridization program, as well as it will also help to make a proper choice of breeding method for developing new cultivar, or if you want to make a improvement in already existing varieties. For that purpose, which breeding method will be suitable, that is depend on the gene action. So features of gene action. So firstly, so gene action is measured in terms of components of genetic variance. How we can measure? Either measuring genetic variance, environmental variance and phenotypic variance, or by measuring the combining ability variances and their effect, we can measure the gene action. So gene action is of two types, that is additive gene action and another one is a non-additive gene action. So this additive fraction of gene action is fixable in nature, because if additive gene action is present, it can be passed on to the next generation. If non-additive type of gene action is present, it is limited only up to that generation, that cannot be passed on to its progenies. Therefore, it is called as a unfixable variation. So additive gene action includes additive genetic variance as well as additive into additive component of epistasis variance, while non-additive gene action include dominance variance, epistasis variance component, that is additive into dominance, and dominance into dominance. So this gene action we can study with the help of several biometrical techniques such as a diallele analysis, partial diallele, triallele, quadriallele, line into tester analysis, generation mean, triple test cross analysis and biparental cross. So by utilizing any one of them, we can study the gene action. So the knowledge of the gene action is very essential in order to know how these characters are transmitted from one generation to the next. So first of all, we are going to see additive gene action. So how this additive gene action is reflected? So additive gene action is resulted from a cumulative effect of all the genes which is present at a locus. So there are many different genes involved in the expression of trait. We know that we are having a polygenic trait such as yield, height, etc., and those traits are governed by many genes. So individual gene has a small, individual genes have here a little effect upon that trait, and effect of each gene when they are adding effect of each gene are cumulative with very little or no dominance between the pairs of alleles. So each member of gene pair has an equal opportunity to get expressed here. So most of our economic traits are yield, quality, adaptability, height, etc. They will show us a additive gene action, and all these traits have a moderate to high heritability. Okay, generally, so these traits are in a quantitative nature. Environment has a less influence on the expression of those traits, and those traits we can't classify into different phenotypes or categories due to their continuous distribution or variation. So such a traits are going to show us a additive gene effects. So additive gene action is nothing but it is the cumulative effect of all genes. So the action of a gene is said to be additive when one allele of a gene is substituted by another allele and it produces the same effect, either positive or negative, then it is called as a additive gene action. Okay, so here I have given one example. So this illustration shows that when we are going to do, if we want to calculate the mid value, here we have some certain assumptions, that is to check additive gene action present or not. This capital T, small t is equal to m. So m is nothing but it is the mean value which is obtained by just doing the, so homozygote individual, both are, when we do the summation and we will take the average of their phenotypic value, you will get a m, this mean. Okay, so you can check here in this illustration, this heterozygous individual should have the same values as their mean. So if we check in this table, this TT, heterozygous individual, will have a phenotypic value 8 which is equal to mean. In the same manner you can check all the assumptions. So TT values are same as their mean. Okay. Then another assumption we have, that is if we do a diagonal so if you want to check, there is a, if mean values are matched, it implies that absence of dominance. Okay, so heterozygotes have a different value which is equal to the mid parent value, and this is true at also for R. If you check this heterozygotes individual for R gene, they also have the values of mean which is equal to the phenotypic value of that heterozygous individual. Okay. Then another assumption we have, if we take a diagonal of this, it should have the equal value. If you check this diagonal or any another, so if we add 6 plus 6 is equal to the 8 plus 4, so 12. So 12 is equal to 12. It shows that there is a no interactions are present. It means that if there is no interactions are exist. Okay. So addition or removal of this capital T, if you check here from this small t or a recessive homozygous individual, if we move towards the heterozygous, if we add this capital T, here we will get a difference of 2. Again if we go to add another capital T, it will again create a difference of 2. So the addition or removal of this T adds or subtract 2 units of action, and it is not affected by the presence of R gene. In the same manner, it is true for the R gene. If we go from this homozygous recessive towards the heterozygous one, addition of capital R, it will have it added 2 units of action. In the same manner, if we add another capital R, it will again add or subtract the 2 units of action. It means that these genes are work on their individual way, they are not interacting with each other. So it means the total of any 2 diagonal values are also equal, which is also showing us no interaction. Next one is non-additive gene action. So control traits which are determined by how gene pairs act in different combination with another that is going to show us a non-additive gene effect. Generally this kind of effect is observable because it is controlled by one or few pairs of gene. So when combination of gene pair gives us a good result in offspring, so that is called as a hybrid vigor or heterosis. So it is nothing but it is the superiority of your F1 or its both parent, then it is called heterosis. So when these combinations of gene give us a good offspring or better offspring than its both parent, called as a heterosis. So generally the traits which is showing us a non-additive gene action, they are generally qualitative in nature. The phenotypes are easily identified. They are having a little environment influence on expression, and we can easily determine their genotype. So in non-additive type of gene action, mainly we are having a two types here, dominant gene action as well as we are having a additive into dominance as well as dominance into dominance component of epistasis varians. So dominant gene action, it refers to the deviation from the additivity or additive scheme of gene action resulting from intra-allelic. So again we are having a monogenes, monopair or single pair of gene, that is capital A, capital A. So it will show us an interaction between these two alleles. Okay. So dominance effects are the deviation from additivity that makes the heterozygote resemble with their dominant homozygous parent. So in this case heterozygote shows us a similar phenotype as their homozygous dominant parent when we are having a complete, or sometimes maybe heterozygous resemblance with one parent more than the other. So the breeder cannot distinguish here between heterozygous and homozygous individuals because they are giving us a same phenotype. But when they are going to pass on to next generation, the homozygotes will breed truly, where heterozygotes show us a segregation. Okay. So it is the why we get a dominance variance or dominance action. It is due to the deviation of this heterozygote from average of these both parents. So heterozygotes is not take a value of both mid parent. It will show either greater value or low value than its mid parent value. So D is equal to not equal to 0. So if we do, so here gene A is showing us a dominance action if such assumption is present. So your heterozygous individual is not equal to 0. It will be shows us a more value than its mid parent or less one. So depending upon the position of heterozygote in relation to M on the hereditary scale, we have three types of dominant gene action: complete gene dominance, partial dominance and over-dominance. Okay. So in case of complete dominance, we are having here some assumptions. When this heterozygous individual is equal to its homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive parent, then it will show us a complete dominance when it takes the value of any of parent. So if it take the value of its homozygous dominant parent, then it is called as a positive complete dominance. If it takes the value of recessive homozygous parent, then it is called as a negative complete dominance. So in this case heterozygotes are equal to homozygotes. So here D is not equal to again 0, and therefore additivity is absent. So in case of partial dominance, this heterozygotes is greater than mid parent value, but it have a less value than its homozygous dominant parent. Or In some cases this homozygous dominant parent have a small value than the mid parent value but less than recessive homozygous. So partial dominance, again we have two types, positive and negative. Okay, so when we call it positive partial dominance, when this heterozygote individual will have a value, phenotypic value is more than mid parent value but less than its homozygous dominant parent. Okay, so that is called as a positive type of partial dominance. Then next one is negative dominance, negative partial dominance. In that case this heterozygote individual will have a less value than the mid parent value and this mid parent value is greater than the its recessive homozygous. So that is termed as a negative partial dominance. Got it? The next one is Oher dominance. So Oher dominance, when this heterozygote individual will have a value higher, phenotypic value higher than the homozygous dominant parent, or maybe sometimes it have a value lower than its recessive homozygous parent. So in that case this allele A is have a positive value over A and vice versa. So that situation is called as a Oher dominance, when heterozygous or F1 will have a greater value or higher value than both of its parent. So if it has a more value than its homozygous dominant parent, then it is called as a positive Oher dominance. If it has a value less than its recessive dominant parent, then it is termed as a negative Oher dominance. That is required in case of maturity, etc., etc. Okay, so this is the Oher dominance. So main feature, generally this dominant gene action is associated with heterozygosity. So as heterozygosity increases, dominant gene action is also increases and it going to be reduced with increasing homozygosity. So you can observe dominant gene action maximum in cross pollinated crop and less in self pollinated crop. So this is a not fixable type of gene action and therefore selection for a certain trait by using a selection method is not possible. It is the major cause of heterosis or hybrid vigor. So due to dominant gene action you will get a superior F1 than its both parent. So specific combining ability variance is the measure of this dominance variance. If you want to measure a dominance variance, we are measuring the specific combining ability variance by using either diallele mating design or partial diallele or line into tester cross analysis. So dominance variance gets depleted through selfing or inbreeding. If you do a continuous selfing on inbreeding of that specific variety or line, it will result in the decrease in heterozygosity and that will result in the reduction in dominance variance or dominance gene action. So generally in natural breeding population, dominance variance is always lesser than additive variance, because in random mating population we are having a intermating or selfing, and due to which we will have a this fraction at low amount or less amount compared to the additive variance. Then here I have explained through one figure or one table how this dominant gene action we can check. So as I already told you, we have again two here assumptions to check non-additive type of gene action. So first assumption is, if we do this this small t minus capital T small t which is not equal to small t, capital T small t minus capital T capital T. So this is our first assumption, and second assumption is this heterozygote individual, suppose capital A small a, which is not equal to this m value. So in this case, this small capital T small t which is not equal to mean value. So we have to check these two assumptions here, does they are meeting or not, to check dominant gene action. One minute. Okay, so here we can check this heterozygous individual which is not equal to the mid parent value. So here we can see mean value is 8.3 and heterozygote individual is having a value 9. Okay, so mid parent value is less than the heterozygous individual. Okay, so our first assumption has made, that heterozygous individual not take the value of m. So again we can check here. So this is an example of complete dominance where heterozygous individual have taken the value of its homozygous dominant parent. Okay, then we can check is there, if you check the values, this heterozygous have taken the value of their dominant parent. Okay, in the same manner you can check here for R genes, and so all genes are here, we have taken two genes T and R. Okay, so this T is not affected by the presence of R gene, so that we can check is there interactions are present or not. So if you take a diagonal cross value, so if you check this one, that is 9 plus 7 is equal to 9 plus 7. So both will have the same value. So it means that there is no interaction present between T and R gene. So we will again check the another our assumption, that is small t or recessive dominant parent value. If we minus from this heterozygous one, it will show us a difference of 2, and here if we go again, it will show us a value 0. It means that our first assumption I have made, that is small t minus capital T small t, which is not equal to the capital T small t minus capital T capital T. So this assumption is also met. They are not showing here a equal values. So it means there is a dominant gene action is present. So addition or substitution of one gene. So when we shift or we add in this recessive parent one dominant gene, there will be action is going to increase by 2 unit. But when we add another capital T into this heterozygous individual, there will be no change takes place in the phenotypic value. Same like we have seen previously in case of additive gene action. So when replacement of a small t by capital T adds, here have a plus effect of 2 units, but when we add another t, there will be no any kind of effect, okay, which is showing us there is a no additive action is present. So that is not going to add any further. So here we have a dominant gene action. Okay. The next one is a epistasis gene action. So epistasis gene action refers to the deviation from additive scheme as a consequence of interallelic interaction. So here also genes are not going to have a additive or cumulative, they are not going to add with addition or subtraction of one gene or one allele. And here we will see the interaction between two genes. So these are the interallelic, not intraalelics. So for such type of interaction we require two or more different genes or loci here in order to have a epistasis gene action or interallelic interaction. So main feature in this type we have both additive as well as non-additive type of gene actions we can see, because it has a three types: additive into additive gene action, additive into dominance, and third one is a dominance into dominance. So first type of epistasis, that is the additive into additive one, which is fixable in nature, that can be passed on to the next generation. Therefore selection for such kind of trait is effective. But for last two types, that is additive into dominance and dominance into dominance, we can't, they are the unfixable in nature, and therefore we can't use a selection method. Instead of that we have to use a heterosis breeding in order to produce a new variety. So in case of generation mean analysis, the epistasis gene interactions are classified on the basis of their negative or positive sign. So there are again two types of epistasis gene interaction we have: complementary type and duplicate type. So in case of complementary type, when one gene pair is going to add, or they are not going to mask the effect of any another gene, both are getting an equal chance to produce and express in a trait. So such type of gene action is called as a complementary type of gene action. And then another one we have, that is the duplicate type. So in which one gene pair is going to cancel or reduce the effect of another allele, so that is called as a duplicate gene action. So in natural breeding population, this epistasis variants are having a lowest magnitude, so it is generally present in a very lesser amount. So one by one we are going to see the three conditions or three types of epistasis gene action. So first we have additive into additive gene action. So we have to check here, we have taken here two pairs of gene, that is A and B. So A gene is also present in dominant action, in additive action, while B is also in a additive gene action. So if you remember our previous assumptions, we have to check this heterozygote individual, that is capital A small a, is equal to M value. In the same manner for B gene we have to check heterozygous of that B gene have the value equal to mid parent value. And how we get the mid parent value? If you remember, that is capital A plus small a divided by 2, you will get the M. Okay. So this is the how to get a M. Okay. So if we check our first assumption, this heterozygous for A gene have the value 6, which is equal to the M value. So we can check here for heterozygous one B also we can check 6 and 6. So these values are same as their mid parent value. Okay. Then another assumption, so both genes are present in additive gene action. So if you want to check the subtraction, another assumption we have, that is when we move or when we add or remove one allele from that gene pair, it will create the same effect. So when we move, so suppose we have another assumption, small a minus capital A small a, which is equal to the value of heterozygous A with its dominant homozygous. So these values should be same. So if we want to check this assumption here, so when we shift from this 3 towards the 6, so when we add in this recessive homozygous parent one capital A gene, it will add 3 units of action. When we move again from this heterozygous to homozygous dominant, again it will add a 3 units of action. So here we can see additive gene action. So addition or subtraction of one gene, either capital or recessive. If we add a homozygous dominant gene, it will add 3 units of action, but when we remove that, it will subtract the 3 units of action. And that is same here for the gene B. If we move from this small b towards the capital B small b, it will add 3 units of action. Okay. So dominant gene adds 3 units in the phenotypic value. Again we move from this heterozygous towards the homozygous dominant, again it will add the 3 units of action. Okay. It means we have here a additive gene action. Then we have to check is there interaction present between A and B or not. So for that purpose, if we take a diagonal value summation here, so 6 plus 2, okay, which is 6 plus 2, which is not equal to 4 plus 3. So you can see here we will get 8, which is not equal to 7. It means that here it's A and B genes are interacting with each other. Okay, they are showing a interaction. If you take here also any diagonal, you will see there is a no equality. They are not showing a equal values, hence A and B genes are having a interaction. Okay, so this type of gene action is called as a additive when this heterozygous individual takes the value of mid parent, and if you see addition of one pair, that will add a equal units of action. But if you cross check diagonally, they will show us a no equal values. It means A and B genes are having interaction, but both are independently have a additive gene action. Okay. The next one is a additive into dominant gene action. So here we have assumption, again this heterozygous individual, two conditions are here we have again, A gene, okay, both two pairs we have taken A and B. So A gene is working in an additive phase, while B gene showing us a dominant gene action, and therefore for A gene we will have a heterozygous individual equal to mid parent value, but for B gene we don't have this. Due to dominant gene action, heterozygous individual of B gene not showing a value of M or mid parent value. So we can check this assumption here. So this heterozygous individual of A will have the same value as their mid parent. Okay, but for B, if you check, the values are not same. So our first assumption have met. Then second assumption we have, that is the addition or subtraction. That is when we move or shift from small a towards the capital A small a, you can see there is a 3 units of gene actions are added due to addition of one dominant allele. When we move from this heterozygous towards the homozygous dominant, again 3 units of gene action are added. So here we can see A gene is working in a additive phase, while for B gene we can check the same. If we move from this recessive homozygous towards the heterozygous, there is a 3 units of gene action we can see. But when we move from heterozygous towards the its homozygous dominant, there is a no any addition of gene action takes place. So here we will see that B is working in a dominant one. So it is going to mask the expression of another allele. Okay, so B is in a dominant condition. Then we will check again another one. When we take a diagonal, so we have to check is there interaction present between A and B. So for that purpose we are taking a diagonal values. So this 9 plus 2, which is equal to 6 plus 3. So you can check here 11, which is not equal to the 9. It means that this A and B genes are having a interaction. Okay. So this is about additive into dominant. Then third one is dominant into dominance type of gene action. So in this case, A and B both are the showing us a dominance gene action. So no one is in a additive phase. So assumptions are the heterozygous individual of A gene which is not equal to M, as well as for B gene heterozygous individual which is also not equal to M. So we can check this one. So this heterozygous of A gene not taking the value of mid parent, as well as for heterozygous for this B gene also not take the value of mid parent. Okay, so you can check here this assumption. So both are showing us a dominant gene action. Again we can check our another assumption. When we move from this recessive dominant towards the heterozygous individual, it will adds 2 units. Okay, it will add a 2 units of gene action, but when we move from heterozygous towards homozygous dominant parent, it will not show us any kind of addition or subtraction. And this is same for a gene B. When we move from homozygous recessive towards heterozygous, it will shows addition of 2 gene units, but when we move from heterozygous towards this homozygous parent, it will show us no addition or subtraction in the phenotypic value. It means that both genes are in showing us a dominant gene action. Then we have to check is there interaction present or not. So we have to take simply this one. So if you check here, both are showing here both genes are showing here a complete dominance. Okay, and therefore if you take this diagonal, you will get a same value. Okay, 9. So here we can't see the interaction, but when we move further here, so you can check 9 plus 6 which is equal to 15 not equal to 7 plus 7 which is equal to 14. So there is interaction exist. The next point is factors affecting gene action. So several factors are responsible that is going to affect the gene action. These are type of genetic material, mode of pollination, mode of inheritance, existence of linkage, sample size, sampling method, and methods of calculation. So one by one we are going to see in brief. So first thing is type of genetic material. So the magnitude of gene action is largely governed by the type of genetic material which is used for study. So in case of self-pollinated species, we are using a pure line variety, or we are developing mass selected variety, multi-line or varietal blend. So if we want to breed for a pure line variety or we want to make improvement in that, it will shows us a additive type of gene action and there is no genetic variation exists. In case of mass selected one, we are having additive as an additive into additive type of epistasis component. Then in case of multi-line, we also having the same additive into additive type of gene action. In case of cross-pollinated species, we will have all the 3 types of gene action, that is additive, dominance and epistasis. But in case of your F1 progeny of both self and cross-pollinated, they will show us a dominant gene action or completely non-additive type gene action, but they are not showing a variation. But in further its segregating population, you will have a additive, dominance and epistasis gene interactions. Then second one is mode of pollination. So gene action is influenced by the mode of pollination. We have two types of pollination, self and cross. So generally this additive gene action is associated with homozygosity. So you can expect additive gene action more in self-pollinated species, while non-additive type of gene action is associated with heterozygosity. So you can expect the more amount of that type of in cross-pollinated species. Then mode of inheritance. So if you remember your previous lectures that you have studied in previous year, where we have studied the modes of inheritance. So some characters are governed by one or more gene. So those characters which is governed by one or few genes called as a oligogenic character, while those character governed by many genes or several genes, that is called as quantitative or polygenic character. And therefore we are having a two types of inheritance, oligogenic and polygenic. Okay, so polygenic characters are governed by additive and non-additive type of gene action, but additive type of gene action is predominant in the expression of such a character, while on the other hand oligogenic characters are governed by non-additive type of gene action, that is dominance and epistasis. Okay. Then existence of linkage. So existence of linkage also going to affect the gene action. So linkage influences the gene action by causing an upward or downward bias. So due to presence of linkage, what happen? We can make a overestimation or underestimation of genetic variances. Okay. So there are two phases of linkage, coupling phase and repulsion phase. So in coupling phase, we will observe linkage between dominant genes. So dominant genes are linked with recessive gene. Linkage is present between two dominant gene or two recessive gene. While in case of repulsion phase, we will see linkage between one dominant and one recessive gene. So linkage is nothing but it is the capacity of gene to inherit together. So during meiosis or mitosis, there will be no breakdown between these two genes takes place, and therefore they will not separate. There will be no formation of gamete takes place. They directly move on as it is into next generation. So if any population is having a coupling type of linkage, then it will make a overestimation of additive variance as well as dominance variance. But if your genes are present in a repulsion phase of linkage, it will make overestimation of dominance variance and underestimation of additive variance. Okay, so in other words, we can say there will be biasness created in case of additive variance and dominance variance. So linkage disequilibrium can be reduced the random mating of population, and it will help to break the linkage by repeated intermating of randomly selected plants. So next one is sample size. So the estimates of variance are also influenced by the sample size. If sample size is small, it will unable to make a proper estimates of the variances. So your estimate should be based on the entire population, and they will explain us a true genetic variance about the population, and hence we require a large sample size in order to get a reliable and valid genetic variances. The next one is sampling method. So there are two sampling methods, that is random sampling and biased sampling. So random sampling method generally provides true estimates of your genetic variance, and hence we can also measure the gene action. While in case of biased one or purposeful sampling, if you do, the sample should not be representative, because as per our choice we are making a selection of the plant and we are measuring the values. So such type of sampling will not give a proper or true results about the genetic variance and thereby gene action. Hence, the material to be evaluated should be a random sample of all possible genotypes present in a population. Then the next one is method of calculation. So, several biometrical techniques are used for the estimation of genetic variance. Such as we are using some mating designs which is based on the genetic assumption in order to obtain a valid estimates of genetic variance. But if we are using a certain types of method, maybe diallele, partial diallele, biparental mapping, and in that case your population is not able to meet the assumptions which is required to use that method, then it result in the biased estimates of genetic components. Okay. So, before using any method to calculate the genetic variances or gene action, your population should meet the all genetical assumption. Then only you will get a true estimates of gene action. The next point is implication in plant breeding. So, why we have to study the gene action, why it is helpful. So, knowledge of gene action is useful to a plant breeder in the selection of parent for hybridization. So, about getting knowledge about gene action, we will select a good parents for hybridization program, as well as it helps in the selection of proper breeding procedure or proper breeding method to make a genetic improvement for various quantitative character. And thirdly, it helps in the estimation of some other genetic parameters such as heritability, etc., etc. So, first one, selection of parent. So, selection of parent for hybridization is a very important step in plant breeding. So, good general combining parents can be identified by using a combining ability analysis, or either in self-pollinated species, though those parents are having a good general combining ability, we can make a use of those parents in hybridization program for obtaining a superior segregants in segregating generation, or in case of cross-pollinated one for development of synthetic and composite varieties. So, selection of parent is based on the genetic variances or gene action. Those are having a high values for genotypic variance or general combining ability, such a parents are selected here for hybridization program or for development of variety. Then next is choice of breeding procedure. So, the inheritance of yield as well as yield contributing characters are polygenic in nature. They are going to show us a continuous variation, and therefore, the choice of breeding method is depends on the type of gene action involved in the expression of this character. So, generally additive genetic variance is a prerequisite for a genetic gain under selection, because only genetic variance is going to respond to the selection method. If dominance variance is present, we can't operate the selection procedure, and for that purpose we have to check in your breeding population which type of gene action is present. So, here I have give examples. If you are having a self-pollinated species, generally they are having a additive gene action. So, in that case we can go for a pure line selection, mass selection, progeny selection, or hybridization and selection, and the end results will be by using pure line selection we can develop a pure line variety. By utilizing mass selection we can produce a mass selected variety. Through progeny selection a new variety will be developed, and by using hybridization selection a new variety or superior segregants will be produced. If your self-pollinated crops showing a non-additive type of gene action, then we have to go with heterosis breeding that will result in the production of a hybrid variety. Then in case of cross-pollinated crops or species, if they are showing us a additive gene action, then we can go with recurrent selection for a general combining ability, which is an population improvement approach through which we can make a improvement in already existing varieties, or we can go for a synthetic breeding that will result in the development of synthetic variety. If your population or crops showing a non-additive gene action, then we have to use a heterosis breeding or recurrent selection for specific combining ability that will result in the development of hybrid variety or improvement in already existing varieties. Okay. If your population or crops showing a both type of gene action, additive as well as non-additive type, then we have to go with reciprocal recurrent selection, which is also one of the approach of population improvement. Okay. So this is the which breeding method we have to adopt as per the type of gene action. Then next one is estimation of other genetic parameters. So genetic variance, which are relative measures of gene action. So generally we are measuring the genetic variance to know the gene action. So additive genetic variance is generally used for the estimation of narrow sense heritability as well as response to selection. Okay. As well as additive and dominance variance also required for the estimation of degree of dominance and various genetic ratios we can calculate on the basis of those variances. So in intermating population, additive genetic variance is never exhausted due to self conversion of non-additive genetic variance. So if you are having an intermating or random mating population, additive genetic variance are never extinct because the non-additive type of genetic variance are converted into additive one. Then this type of conversion result due to fixation of heterozygote into homozygote. So in case of self-pollinated species, additive genetic variance is present in a more amount in segregating generations as well as mixtures of several different pure lines. So additive genetic variance is of a universal occurrence in plant breeding population. If you take any plant breeding population, you will have a additive genetic variance. So non-additive variance also exists, but generally smaller in magnitude than additive one. So in natural breeding population, additive genetic variance is predominant and which is closely followed by a dominance variance. So an epistasis variance is lowest in the magnitude. So if you take any breeding population, we will observe additive genetic variance in more amount followed by dominance variance and a very least or negligible amount of epistasis variance. So this is all about gene action. So thank you for watching or listening this video.